What's up, folks? Let's talk about a really weird character. This is a permanent ward setup that I kind of envisioned a couple days ago, maybe it's been a week ago, and went out and tried to create and see if it works. And it's really cool, except it doesn't exactly fully work. So full disclosure, this is a tier 6 map. I can do the same thing in tier 9s and 10s, but if I get unlucky with a couple crits, I might die, and this was way cooler of a background while I'm talking, so we're just going to go with this one. How does this whole shenanigans work? So, ward naturally breaks when you take a hit. I'm taking a lot of hits. So, what's going on? I'm using the Olroth's Resolve Flask. This flask makes it so ward does not break during the flask effect. Sweet, right? So, you put reused at the end of Flask on that thing, then you go and you become a Pathfinder Ascendant, and you grab yourself the Traitor keystone, and don't wear any other Flask. You then have permanent Olroths, along with some other stuff that I had to scale in there. So my ward never breaks. I have 1500 ward currently. Most things don't hit you in one hit for 1500 ward. So far, so good. The way to do this, though, has made me have to do so many extra steps that I kind of don't have damage, which is a little bit of a problem. And we'll get to that. But let's explain the whole concept and why it's really cool. And I really hope ward gets implemented in the game and given more stuff to work with, because I think it would be really, really cool in the long run if it could work out. So, how do we scale our ward? Well, we're using a Faith Guard helmet. The increases and reductions to maximum energy shield instead apply to ward. So instead of scaling energy shield, you would scale your ward. We get 1600 intelligence because we are an instacker, and by doing that, with this, we get a massive amount of ward. Naturally, I think I have about 4k ward. I don't want to turn the flask off because I will die, but naturally, I have a massive amount of ward, and because of Olroth's Resolve, it just doesn't break. Hey, look, I took some damage there. Crazy. It just keeps going and going and going. Theoretically, from my calculations, if I were to spend a bunch more money into this build, I could get about 2k ward with this setup with a bunch of modifications, and at that point, I think I could tank everything in, like, tier 16 maps as well, but there's a couple caveats to that, and why I don't really actually recommend this build. Faith Guard itself is a pretty crap item. It doesn't really give you anything besides that one line, and I wish it had 250 ward instead of 52 ward, because it's a ward item. You are scaling ward. I don't understand why the base item has absolutely no ward, so that's caveat number one. You basically give up an entire slot to get scaling. Ward gloves and ward boots. Ward gloves and ward boots are tri-spec, so they're strength, dex, and int, and they can only roll dex. So if you're trying to get yourself a big ward roll like this and also get int, you're spamming with spites, and I didn't spam mine with spites. I did denses on this because I needed a big base of ward, so that's why I have 431 ward, and I crafted int, because for some reason, even though they're hybrid, they can only roll dex. Same thing with boots. Had to do spites on those. I got spites with a 300. I wish I had more ward on them, but once again, they can't roll anything but dex for whatever reason, and so you have to do it this way, and this is what I have. So a little bit of a weird thing to craft. The second problem with this is that no one is making ward gear, so you're making everything yourself. So however much money you want to spend on it, that's how powerful your build is going to be. How are we making Olroth's Resolve work is the next question. This is the unique ward flask that is been made, and what we're doing is we're taking the Tactician for 50% increased flask charges gained. We're taking the Traitor for passive flask generation with no flasks. We're taking Pathfinder for gained 3 flask charges a second, or every 3 seconds. And then we are speccing into flask charges gained and not flask effect. If you spec into flask effect on this build, so nodes like this, or nodes like that, or going Pathfinder, or specking this node, every point of flask effect, I think every 5% of increased flask effect would reduce my Olroth's Resolve, would reduce my ward by 100, because it increases the percent of the less ward during flask effect. So it actually makes it so that by speccing into Flask, The Flask gets worse, because if you get, I think, 30% increased, you will have 100% less ward, and you will just not have any ward. I don't understand why that is. I don't know why that was designed like that. Please make it go the other way. It would be a whole lot easier to build this if it went the other way, not more negative. So you have to build basically around the idea that you're getting enough flash charges and flash duration so that you have a 6-second Olroths with enough generation to generate it. The way I'm getting mine is I have a node up here with 35% increased effect on a 6% duration. This is giving me all of these with intelligence, and that's giving me a 7-second Olroths, which is making it so it's always up consistently. Very nice. Not a problem there. Other problem with Olroths is that if you phase through a door, so on bosses where you have to walk into an arena, the Flask for some reason just drops off and you have to reactivate it. I think it has something to do with the grace timer, and then if it tries to proc in the grace timer, it doesn't work. That's a whole nother issue. I've died a lot of times to not having my Flask up, thinking it's automatic. It's not. It went off during the door. There's all these weird little problems as to why this build isn't exactly working. Next, because we're stacking so much int and having to give up our boots, our gloves, our belt, our helmet to be able to then have ward, we kind of just don't do damage. Right now with Spectral Helix, if I were to keep leveling, I've been trying out a bunch of different spells, bunch of different setups, bunch of different things all around, switching spells. That's why they're low level right now. This is just me testing stuff. I would only have a Spectral Helix DPS of about 600k, and 600k when it comes to endgame boss fights is just not going to work on a build like this. Shaper, Elders, Cortex, Mavens, the Hidden, the Fear, they all put down ground degens that do kill this character, and because you don't have the DPS to kill them quickly enough, you can't do the fight even if you could take the hits. So if you can take a hit to the face, that's fine, but if there's a ground degen that kills you after it fills up the entire arena, you just can't. You have to build offense. You cannot build this defensively because it just won't work. You won't be able to survive because you have too little damage. So that's kind of annoying. I can mitigate the hits, no problem at all, but degens I can't do anything about. The way that right now I'm working on, or would be working on, to get rid of crits is capture the Nightmare's Omen so that I don't get crit. If I get crit multiple times in a row, that's why sometimes you'll see my HP actually move. Crits can take me out, so that's another downside of the build currently. There was a crit, it actually moved my HP, so that is something that can happen here and there, but taking this might be able to be enough to get rid of it. I wish there was a better way of getting crit mitigation. That would be fantastic. I would love that, and it would make this way, way better. The other thing is poisons. They're a bit of an issue. I wish I had Chaos Resist, and I could have it on the build if we were, you know, a couple patches back and I could actually work on the gear and get Chaos Resist everywhere. But since I'm having to self-make the gear, I'm kind of poor as a result of this character. But, you know, that is just what it is. Ailment Avoidance is easy. You know, we grab this wheel here, so there's 6 points invested there. Then we grab these 3 points up here, and then we're running a chess piece with it crafted on there, so we have Ailment Avoidance at least giving us that side of things, which is pretty good. And we get Stun Avoidance from being a Zerker. When we get some Rage going, this gives us a bit more damage. It does make us take a little bit more damage, meaning our ward is a little bit less beneficial, but still very cool concept. I did originally, instead of having a Aziri's Mirror, this is not the upgraded version, this is the base version, this is just, once again, me testing stuff. Instead of Aziri's Mirror, I did use an Emperor's Vigil with the Eldritch Battery, so I have my ES over here and grab these nodes here. It gave me 75% chance to block attacks and 60% chance to block spells, which was really, really good with Glancing Blows, because when you take a hit against Glancing Blows, it reduces you to only taking 65% of the damage, and if you're taking 65% of the damage, that means you just gained effectively more ward, because you're taking less damage, and if you do not take 1447 damage, your HP will not move. So if you reduce the incoming damage, the more percent mitigation you have before you take a hit, the more effective your ward is. So there might be some kind of weird play with this, with like getting the purity auras going and all that kind of stuff. I haven't really explored that avenue yet, but it would be very interesting. Now, Things that can kill me. It's a long list. I've been testing very much on this build. I have 130 deaths, which for me is probably all my characters combined this league. Things that can kill me. Poison. Bleed if I'm moving. If I move right now, I will die. That can be alleviated with a chest thing from the breach chest. Chaos resist could alleviate the poison. Then I die to crits. I don't know how to get rid of crits besides the Pantheon, but one big crit from a boss is going to kill me, so that's kind of crappy. What else can kill me? Ground degens. So if there's too much stuff on the ground, that's going to kill me. Not so much, your cold degens and those things, but poison degen, that'll kill me. And the nullifier. So a rare mob that pops up has the nullifier effect, turns off my flask, and I die. So not really immortal. I'm not going to go recommending this thing in hardcore by any means, but still, very cool concept. What more could I do? Where could I take it? And what is my gear lacking? So, the biggest thing I'm lacking right now is Chaos Resist. If I could craft, Chaos Resist, boots, gloves, and all that stuff and get that up, I think I would be fine when it comes to poisons. That's not a problem. I just don't have the ability to spam Spite Essences on ward gloves, hoping to get 400 ward, Spite Essence, and Chaos Resist, because I'm not made of infinite money. If it was Harvest, the old school style, I would keep going on this character because I have a lot of stuff I want to upgrade. I can't make those upgrades. So Chaos Gloves with Ward and Spite would be really nice. Get way more int, get way more damage, get way more resistances. Same thing with Boots. Ward, 400 Ward with int, Chaos Resist would be really strong. Get more int, get more Chaos Resist, become tankier. My rings, they would be pretty much what they are now. I would love to get Wed on this one as well as this one. This one's actually like one of the few pieces I have that's like done. It's got Cold, Lightning, Wed, Chaos Resist. Pretty good piece for me. Amulet would be, your awakened amulet with your percent intelligence, percent attributes, awakened smashed together, put on, and then switch the Anoint to Primal Forces, because we're always Flask effective, so that would be even more damage. And these are things I might do if I find like a Headhunter or a Mirror or something like this league, because I really want to play this build. Overall, just Tribal Furies on there. I started with Molten Strike, didn't really pan out, so that would be another upgrade I could make. Aziri's actual Reflection Mirror, which is like 5x right now, would be really good. It would get rid of vulnerability, element to weakness, a lot of these things that are making me take more damage, get rid of them completely. That would be really strong. I would be way, way tankier with that as well. The helmet, even if I replace it with a 500 ward basic helmet, the big helmet that you can craft, I go down half my ward. Without the scaling from intelligence, I just don't have any ward. It kind of sucks. The helmet's stuck in place. It is what it is. My claw, I could corrupt this thing for attack speed, but I mean, it's not going to make that much of a difference. My TBS is just going to be crap anyway. I need to fix a bunch of stuff, and that's just not going to change. The chest piece is the one thing that I'm kind of sad I didn't get last night. There was a 4x chest piece, the Grasping Mail chest piece that has 100% increased global defenses, affects your ward, and it would give me another 200 ward or so. And there was one with int, cannot take more damage from bleeding while moving, global defenses, and I could have had an open prefix on it to craft percent attributes on it, and it would have been oh so good for me. But because those things are extremely rare and they only pop up maybe once a month, I can't really count on that. If I had other ways of crafting those, I would, and then I would make it. So what it boils down to for me on this character is that I'm out of options and avenues to actually upgrade the character. I do not have the means to take this character further without just investing hundreds and hundreds of hours and time and grind and grind and grind and grind. And I just don't really want to do that. I'd rather move on to more characters that are accessible and just not be frustrated by my lack of being able to make anything for this guy, because no one else is making things for this build. But if they implement more ward stuff, I will definitely be coming back to this character because it's a lot of fun. I love the slow play style. It doesn't do a lot of damage. It doesn't do anything flashy, but it's big, it's beefy, it's tanky. and just standing around watching mobs wail on you is a lot of fun. It's so much fun. I will be leaving the path to building in the description below if you want to look at that and see. There has been a lot of revisions to this. You know, there's been a lot of movement, a lot of ways that I've changed the build. A lot of stuff I could do. I still got to get a supercharged cluster up here so I can get more damage. Just a whole lot of stuff. Like I said, I'm not going to take this character apart. Skin of the Lords is another one you could put in. If you have any suggestions for stuff, by all means, leave it down below. But I probably have tested most of them. This character has been through probably about 200 regret orbs at this point in its path to being where it is right now, with me changing and testing stuff out. It's so cool. I love it as a concept. I just hope it gets better implemented. I hope the Flask doesn't get more butchered by giving Flask charges. I hope ward stuff gets int as its base, you know, so that you could craft that. And I hope that I can make this character again. I hope Faith Guard goes up to 250. Like I really hope that I get to come back to this character at some point and enjoy it, because man, I love the feeling of being this thick. I don't need damage to be sky high, but I just need it to be enough that I can also do content that is time-gated, like incursions and breaches and mavens and awakener. Well, no, awakener's not time-gated. I could do awakener on this guy. You know, you get what I'm going at. It's a cool build. It's a cool concept. I hope somebody with a lot deeper pockets of exalts gets to it and builds it better. You know, make it more. Make it more. Get 2,000 ward. Get the bleed mitigation. Get yourself some chaos resist. Get a bunch of int. Go absolutely mega ham and make this character what it should be, because it's just such a cool concept. It's so fun as a weird thing just to have one Flask and get your ailments, and oh, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I wish I could make it go further, but sadly it will be left on the shelves for now because I cannot make its gear. And that's all there is to it. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this enlightened somebody into trying something cool out, and yeah, I dig it. Have a good one.